It's the dead of night in Atlanta, and Monica Jefferson, Georgia's top legal titan, is just trying to grab a quick coffee. But when two cops pull up, they don't see a powerhouse, they see a target. What happens next isn't just a shocking arrest, it's a wake-up call that flips the script on justice. Now to witness a battle that'll leave you speechless. It was well past midnight, but Monica Jefferson wasn't in a hurry. She'd spent the entire day in the courtroom, navigating a whirlwind of cases, her mind a relentless arena of arguments, evidence, and closing remarks. Now, all she wanted was to grab a coffee and head home. She pulled into a 24-hour diner off a quiet highway in Atlanta, Georgia, exhaling slowly as she parked her car under the neon glow of the sign. The soft hum of the night was broken only by the occasional truck rumbling past. Monica stepped out, her thoughts drifting. Maybe she'd unwind with a glass of wine later, maybe crack open that novel collecting dust on her bedside table. She didn't notice the police cruiser pulling into the lot until she heard the door slam. Two officers, one older, stocky, with an air of command that demanded compliance, the other, younger, jittery, glancing at his partner for guidance, Lieutenant Daniel Harris and Officer Ryan Miller. She felt their eyes on her before she even turned. That familiar stare, the kind she'd seen countless times in legal battles. "Ma'am," Harris said, approaching with a deliberate stride, "we're going to need to see some ID." Monica's hand paused on her car door. She looked up, already sensing where this was going. "Why?" she asked. "Routine check," he replied, his tone sharp, practiced. She studied them for a moment. The diner lot was empty, no one else was being questioned, just her. Monica sighed and reached for her wallet. "I'll show you my ID," she said evenly, "but first, tell me why you stopped me." Miller stepped closer. "We got a report of a stolen black SUV in the area. Yours matches the description." Monica almost laughed. That car had been hers for 4 years. The plates were in her name. The insurance was in her name. A stolen car? Who reported it stolen? She asked. Harris narrowed his eyes. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." Monica didn't flinch. She'd faced worse. Murder trials, corporate fraud cases, defendants with nothing to lose. But she knew arguing now wouldn't help. She handed over her ID, her expression neutral as Harris took it. Miller circled the car, running his hand along the side like he was searching for proof. "Step away from the vehicle," Harris ordered. Monica's patience was wearing thin. "You've got my ID. Check it. You'll see this car's mine." Miller stopped at the driver's window, peering inside. "That's a work bag," he said. Monica followed his gaze. A leather briefcase, the one she carried to court daily, sat on the passenger seat. "Open the trunk," Harris said. Monica raised an eyebrow. Miller edged closer. "Excuse me," she said calmly. "You don't have probable cause. My ID's valid, and this car's legally mine. You've got no right to search it." A flicker of annoyance crossed Harris's face. He turned to Miller. "Call it in." This was where things got tricky. Monica had seen it too many times. How quickly a stop like this could escalate. She heard Miller's voice on the radio contacting dispatch. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from rising frustration. She'd built her career fighting this, holding officers like them accountable, and now here she was. Harris crossed his arms, staring at her like she was a puzzle to solve. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step away from the car." Monica didn't move, but she knew this wasn't over. "And if I refuse?" Harris's expression tightened. "Then we do this the hard way." Monica felt the shift in the air the moment Harris squared his shoulders. His posture stiffened, more confrontational. She'd spent enough time analyzing police behavior in court to know what was coming. "Ma'am, I'm not asking again," Harris said, his voice taut. "Step away from the vehicle." Monica's pulse stayed steady. She'd dismantled officers like him in court, shredding their justifications word by word. But here, in this empty diner lot, there was no judge, no jury, just raw authority. Miller's hand hovered near his belt. Tension crackled between them. Monica could hear her own heartbeat, calm and deliberate as she weighed her next move. "Lieutenant," she said, her voice measured, "you know this is illegal." Harris let out a sharp breath through his nose. "You're defying a lawful order." "There's nothing lawful about it," Monica shot back. She should have known that wouldn't matter. Miller moved first. His hand darted out, grabbing her wrist with a grip that made it clear this wasn't about a routine stop anymore. It was about dominance. Before she could react, Harris grabbed her other arm, twisting both behind her back. "Are you serious?" Monica snapped, shifting slightly. "Stop resisting!" Miller shouted. She wasn't, but they needed it to look that way. Cold steel snapped around her wrists. The click of the handcuffs echoed in the quiet lot. "You've got no right—" "You're under arrest for failure to comply," Harris interrupted. Monica clenched her jaw. This was textbook. Provoke the suspect, escalate the encounter, justify the force. It was also predictable. They spun her around, pressing her against the car's side. The rough texture of Miller's glove dug into her shoulder. "Got anything I should know about?" Miller asked, patting down her pockets with deliberate slowness. Monica stared straight ahead. "Check the bag," Harris ordered. Miller grabbed it from the hood and yanked it open. Wallet, keys, court badge. His movements slowed. "Lieutenant?" Harris looked over. Miller pulled out a leather case and flipped it open. Monica's official ID stared back at them. Georgia State Prosecutor, Chief District Attorney. For a moment, silence. Then Harris snatched it from his hands, scanning it quickly, the gold state seal glinting under the diner's neon lights. His face paled. "You're making a big mistake," Monica said, her voice calm but cutting. Harris blinked, processing. Miller shifted uneasily. "Lieutenant, what do we do?" Harris hesitated. The weight of what they'd just done hit him in real time. They'd just arrested the woman leading the investigation into racial profiling in their own department, and now they were trapped. "Take the cuffs off," he muttered. Miller, "I said take the damn cuffs off!" Miller fumbled, the metal scraping as he unlocked them. Monica rubbed her wrists, watching them closely. "Look," Harris started, forcing a tight smile. "This was a misunderstanding." Monica wasn't smiling. She took back her ID slowly and slipped it into her jacket pocket. "Yeah," she said, her eyes locked on him. "It was. But misunderstandings don't come with handcuffs. And this isn't over." Monica stood still, her wrists sore from the cuffs, the weight of the moment crushing the two men in front of her. Harris looked like a man who'd just stepped into quicksand without realizing it. Miller, younger and less experienced, kept shifting, his fingers twitching at his sides. "This doesn't have to go anywhere," Harris said, his voice straining to sound in control. "Let's move on." Monica let the words hang. Move on. She had spent her career fighting for people who never got to move on. People pulled from their cars, slammed onto asphalt, humiliated in front of their loved ones, all because officers saw them as threats, not people. She inhaled slowly, deeply. "You stopped me without cause, cuffed me, searched me illegally, and now you want to walk away like it's nothing." Harris swallowed hard. "We didn't know who you were." Monica's eyes narrowed. "And if I wasn't the chief DA, would we be having this talk, or would I be in the back of your cruiser right now?" Neither answered. Miller finally looked up, his face uncertain. "Look, we were just doing our job." Monica let out a scoff. "That tired, flimsy excuse?" She stepped forward, lowering her voice just enough to make them lean in. "You think this ends here? You think because you took the cuffs off, it all goes away?" She tilted her head. "Tell me, how long you been on the force?" Miller hesitated. 5 years. Monica turned to Harris. "And you?" He clenched his jaw. 18 years. "Long enough to know better," she said. Harris exhaled through his nose, hands on his hips like he was bracing for impact. "What do you want from us?" Monica studied him. "I want you to remember this moment, because the next time you stop someone who looks like me but doesn't have this," she held up her badge, letting its weight sink in, "they won't have the same power to fight back." She let the silence stretch. Miller shifted again, uneasy, his eyes flicking between her and his partner. Finally, Harris spoke. "Look, we screwed up, I get it." Monica shook her head. "No, you don't get it, but you will." Harris opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Miller's radio crackled, cutting through the silence. "Unit 49, status check on that stop," the dispatcher. Someone else knew about this encounter. Miller hesitated, looking to Harris for a signal. Harris let out a heavy breath. "Tell them it's all clear." Miller paused, just a second too long. Guilt weighs heavy, but finally pressed the button. "Unit 49, all clear." Monica nodded. "Good. Now I suggest you go home and think real hard about what just happened." She turned to her car, reaching for the door handle. But then, like something clicked, a slow realization spread across Harris's face. "What department did you say you were with?" he asked, cautious. Monica smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I didn't." She slid into her seat, closed the door, and started the engine. As she pulled away, she didn't need to check the rear view to know they were still standing there. Their world had just gotten a whole lot smaller than it was 10 minutes ago, because they'd wrongfully arrested the woman leading the investigation against their department, and come morning they'd wake up to a nightmare they couldn't escape. The next morning, Monica sat at her desk, staring at a stack of case files. The irony wasn't lost on her. For months, she'd been reviewing complaints against Atlanta PD officers, each one detailing patterns of racial profiling, excessive force, illegal stops, each one filled with names of people humiliated, arrested, or worse, all because of officers' mistakes. And now, her own name belonged in one of those files. A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. Her assistant, Sarah Thompson, poked her head in. "They're here." Monica exhaled. "Send 'em in." The door swung wider, and Police Chief Michael Carter walked in, his face tight, unreadable. Behind him, Internal Affairs Investigator James Reed carried a manila folder under his arm. They didn't waste time with small talk. Carter cleared his throat. "I saw the video." Monica's fingers tapped the edge of her desk. The diner's security cameras had caught it all. "I'm guessing you also saw the part where they cuffed me," she said coolly. Carter's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm not going to defend them. What happened last night was unacceptable." Monica tilted her head. "Then you know what's coming next." Reed set the folder on her desk and opened it. Inside were disciplinary reports, Harris's and Miller's names stamped across multiple complaints. Monica glanced at them. "How many?" Carter hesitated. Reed answered instead. 14 against Harris, 9 against Miller, mostly for racial bias. Monica let that sink in, and they were still out patrolling the streets. She leaned back in her chair. "You know, when I started digging into this department, I had a theory," she said, clasping her hands. "I figured the problem was systemic, that leadership just looked the other way." She paused. "But last night, I realized something else." Carter's eyes flickered. "What's that?" She held his gaze. "The problem isn't just the system. It's that cops like Harris and Miller think they're untouchable." Carter shifted, uneasy. "I'm putting them both on administrative leave." "That's not enough," Monica cut in. He'd watched her closely. "What do you want?" She leaned forward, voice firm. "I want them fired." Carter stiffened. "Monica, you know how hard it is to fire a cop with union protections, even with the video. The appeal process can drag on for months." "Then let's make sure they don't appeal." Carter exhaled heavily, running a hand over his face. "You're asking me to throw them to the wolves." Monica's expression didn't budge. "I'm not asking you to throw them anywhere. I'm asking you to hold them accountable for once." Reed shifted in his seat. "If we charge them, it's going to hit the department hard. We're already under a microscope." Monica let out a short laugh. "You're worried about the department's image? I was humiliated, cuffed, and illegally detained by 2 cops with a history of misconduct. If you think I'm letting this slide, you don't know me at all." A long silence filled the room. Carter exhaled. "What charges are you recommending?" Monica didn't hesitate. "Illegal detention, misconduct, and abuse of power." Carter's shoulders slumped. He knew there was no way out. "All right," he nodded. Reed said, "I'll get the paperwork ready." Monica stood. "And one more thing." Both looked at her. "I want a press conference." Carter frowned. "You sure about that?" Monica's eyes darkened. "I'm done handling things quietly. It's time the public knows exactly who's protecting them. Because if Harris and Miller could do this to her, a woman with power and influence, what hadn't they done to people without a voice? This wasn't just about justice. It was about making sure it never happened again. The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras clicking every few seconds. The benches were crammed, community members, activists, other cops watching the trial in silence. At the defendant's table, Lieutenant Daniel Harris and Officer Ryan Miller sat in stiff suits, no badges, their futures on the line. Miller stared down, hands clasped so tight his knuckles were white. Harris, jaw clenched, looked straight ahead, his face carefully blank. Monica walked in, the sound of her heels echoing on the polished floor. She'd prosecuted criminals, corrupt officials, even cops before, But this was different. This time, she was both the prosecutor and the victim. She took her seat and set down her notes. Today wasn't just about those two men. It was about a system that had let them act without consequences. The judge entered, called for order, and the proceedings began. The prosecutor, Monica's colleague, Assistant DA Nathan Brooks, stood. "Your Honor, the people will prove that the defendants, Lieutenant Daniel Harris and Officer Ryan Miller, conducted an illegal detention, violated the victim's rights, and abused their authority under the guise of the law." Harris's lawyer, Edward Vance, rose next, his voice smooth, practiced. "Your Honor, my clients acted within the scope of their duties. This was a misunderstanding, not intentional misconduct." A misunderstanding. Monica kept her face neutral. A misunderstanding doesn't come with handcuffs. Brooks called the first witness, the diner manager. "I was inside, watching the cameras," the man testified. "She was just parking her car. Then those two showed up and you could tell right away they weren't there to help." Brooks played the surveillance video. Every second of the wrongful stop flashed on the screen. Harris demanding ID, Miller circling the car, Monica being grabbed, pinned, see smimage. Then the moment their faces changed when they saw her badge. Brooks let the video run a few seconds longer, letting the weight of it settle in the room. "Did these officers seem to have any reason to arrest her?" he asked. "No, sir," the manager replied. "They just did it because they felt like it." Harris shifted in his seat. Miller kept his head down. Next, Miller was called to the stand. He hesitated, glanced at Harris, then stood and walked to the witness box. Brooks leaned in. "Officer Miller, let's talk about that night. When you approached Ms. Jefferson, what did you suspect her of?" Miller swallowed. "There was a report of a stolen vehicle matching the description." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Did you verify the report before approaching her?" Miller faltered. "No, not then." "So you had no real reason to suspect her?" Miller squirmed. "We just wanted to be sure." Brooks turned to the jury. "Wanted to be sure. That's the justification, no probable cause, no evidence, just a hunch." He looked back at Miller. "When did you realize you'd detained the state's chief DA?" Miller's face reddened. "After we checked her ID." "And you still cuffed her?" A long pause. "Yes," he mumbled. Harris's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. When it was Monica's turn to testify, she spoke clearly, firmly. "I've dedicated my career to making sure people are treated fairly under the law," she told the court. "These officers treated me as a criminal first and a citizen second. The only reason I'm here today, instead of in a cell, is because of my title. That should terrify everyone in this room." Her words hung in the air. Harris's face was stone, but Miller looked smaller, like a man realizing too late he'd ruined his own life. Brooks addressed the jury. "The law is clear. These men abused their power. Now it's time to hold them accountable." And for the first time in their careers, Harris and Miller weren't the ones calling the shots. The verdict came faster than expected. Monica sat still as the jury foreperson stood and cleared their throat. "We, the jury, find the defendants guilty on all charges." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Harris's shoulders tensed, his mask of indifference cracking. Miller let out a shaky breath, staring at the table like he wanted to vanish. The judge's gavel hit the wood. "Sentencing will be scheduled at a later date. This court is adjourned." As the judge left, the room erupted. Cameras flashed, reporters surged forward, their voices blending. "Miss Jefferson, do you think justice was served? Will this case set a precedent? What would you say to those defending these officers?" Monica faced the press head-on, stepping to the microphones with the same composure she'd held since the moment she was cuffed. "Let me make one thing clear," she said, her voice steady and calm. "This was never about revenge. It was about accountability." She scanned the sea of cameras. "This case matters because it proves something we already knew. When the system works, bad cops don't walk away clean. But it shouldn't take a courtroom, a media frenzy, or the right job title for someone to get justice." Her words landed heavy on the crowd. Lieutenant Harris and Officer Miller thought they could act without consequences. That belief ends today. Her gaze swept the cameras one last time. And if there are others out there wearing a badge and thinking the same way, let this be a warning. With that, she stepped back, ignoring the next wave of questions. Justice had been done, but her work wasn't over. Harris and Miller were officially stripped of their badges. Miller, for his lesser role, got probation and community service. Harris, with his long history of misconduct, was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. For the first time, he'd be on the other side of the law. And yet, the victory felt hollow. A week later, Monica sat in her office, staring out the window as the city moved on. For every case like this, how many go unheard? How many people are stopped, searched, arrested, humiliated, and never get a chance to fight back? She reached for the file on her desk. A new case, another complaint, another name on the list. She exhaled and opened it. Because justice isn't a single moment, it's a fight. And she wasn't done fighting. Monica Jefferson's ordeal at that Atlanta diner is more than a headline. It's a raw lesson in the fragility of fairness. It teaches us that power doesn't shield you from prejudice, and real change demands more than outrage. It requires action. Monica didn't just fight for herself. She exposed a system that thrives on silence, showing us that justice is only possible when we refuse to let wrongs slide. In our lives, this means stepping up, whether it's challenging a biased comment, supporting someone who's been unfairly treated, or holding those in charge accountable. It's about building habits of courage, listening, learning, and acting even when it's uncomfortable. Her story pushes us to ask, if we don't stand up, who will? Every choice we make to confront inequity, no matter how small, stitches together a world where no one's dignity is disposable. Huge thanks for tuning in and diving deep into this story with us. Your energy fuels these conversations. If Monica's fight struck a chord, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this video to keep the spark alive. Subscribe and tap the bell for more stories that challenge the status quo and ignite change. Let's do this together.